Do you love playing as Juggernaut, but hate selling the game and getting emoted on? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we'll not just be going over what each Juggernaut does, we'll dive into everything you could possibly need. Combos, playstyles, how their kit fares in different situations, tech, and how to deal with the challengers most efficiently. Today, we won't be learning how to play JGN, we'll be learning how to win. Now, no matter what Juggernaut you pick, you have to know this. JGN is a simple game of targeting. No matter how many insane filibuster combos you learn, if you let the guy who has SSG farm damage off of you all game, you're gonna lose. Targeting goes like this. Firstly, go for the people who have the high DPS ranged weapons. These are your Chicagos, SSGs, interventions, and whatever else you consider a high DPS ranged weapon to be. Next, this one's a little advanced, but go for the people who make you squishier with status effects like Curse or Scared. These are harder to spot, but include the Joy Mutants, Shadow Axes, and King Tusks. These guys can end your run so fast because Curse can stack, making you take up to triple the damage from all sources, and Joy Mutant Scream makes you take 35% more damage. Next, go for the people who have a really strong melee weapon like Real Knife or Solemn Lament. These can take a good chunk out of your health bar, but they have to be up close to even use it, and most Juggernauts can literally just run away from these guys. But still take them out when you can. Then target all the weaker players. However, there are some people you should actually leave for last. In most Juggernaut games, you're going to have someone who's really mobile using something like Skeleton Juice or a melee like Pearl's Sight. These guys you should leave for last, as long as they aren't holding any of the weapons listed above. Once you ensure that you can't be damaged by any other sources, then you can safely deal with the speedier players using any leaps or heavy attacks you have at your disposal. However, what if they do have an OP item along with speed? Well, this requires some of your own discretion. The really fast and squishy Juggernauts like Red Mist and HALE should target these guys first and ignore the other enemies, unless they have something better of course. However, with a slower and tankier Juggernaut like MIHAWK, let them survive and see if the damage you're taking from them is really worth the struggle. And if you filibuster, try to either land Obstruct on them or use your orbs. But on closer maps, a dash into a full combo will also work. Now for the reason you probably clicked on this video. Next is an in-depth guide and analysis of each Juggernaut, including combos, general playstyles, and any other techniques you should know. This will not be like the other numerous videos just explaining their stats and what each ability does. This is going to be on how to win. I'll also be telling you what maps they do the best on, and the maps where they do the worst on. Let's start with Red Mist. Red Mist is a quick swinging, extremely mobile Juggernaut who actually does a hit and run playstyle correctly. She has 20 speed, making her tied for the second fastest Juggernaut in the game, and has a base HP of 1.75k with an extra 437 for every player, making her tied for the third strongest Juggernaut in the game. Those are the base stats, but I'll also be ranking all of these ones. Firstly, in practice, she is the most mobile Juggernaut. Her damage output is also relatively solid, but she does not have a leap ability. With her horizontal and vertical split, along with Onrush and Spear, her abilities are extremely strong. Finally, I'd give them a difficulty rating of about 2. In summary, she's faster than most Jugs, but also on the squishier side. Let's learn how to play her. First off, before we even get into combos, do not play this Jug on Woodworks or Crossroads, and I highly discourage you from playing it on Beta Islands. This is because Red Mist is really bad with elevation, and Woodworks and Crossroads both have spots where either Red Mist can't hit them at all, or where you have to do a really precise onrush in order to hit them. And don't play them on Beta Islands because... To play Red Mist, you'll have to know its signature combo. You open with a full M1, do Spear, and then do another full M1. You can also add on Vertical Split and Onrush before or after this combo to deal more damage. Really difficult, right? Also, keep in mind that although a Vertical Split is under the Ego gear, you can use it outside of Ego. And that's it for Red Mist. Okay, I'm only kind of kidding. This guy is pretty simple to play, but there are a few other things you should know. First, his lack of elite makes elevation really annoying to play against. Thankfully though, most of the maps in the map pool right now have really little elevation at all. But if you want to main this guy, make sure you know how to navigate the little elevation that exists effectively. Through the rooftops on Townie, across the containers, and through the second floor of Critical Strike. The pillars on Rocket Arena and most of the containers can all be fully covered by your M1s, so don't worry about those. Now, let's discuss Ego. With a requirement of 1000 damage, Ego lasts 1 minute and gives you 40% defense at 50% HP, or 80% defense at 25% HP. It makes your speeder ability do an extra 5 damage, your M1s do an extra 4 damage, and your onrush do an extra 12 damage. These stats mean a couple things. First, unless you decide to lock in during half HP and play the best red mist the Asylum has ever seen, you're not getting Ego twice. So the question is, do we activate Ego at 50% to kill everyone faster, or do we activate Ego at 25% for the extra defense? Well, unless you're someone who is really annoying you and isn't going down with just your base damage, I would wait to get down to 25% HP before using Ego. If you disagree, I don't think you realize how tanky 80% defense is. That's 5 times base HP. Anyway, Red Mist right now is in a really good state, maybe even too good. She effectively has 0 downsides outside of Woodworks and Crossroads, and her Ego gear is extremely powerful. Overall, I currently rate Red Mist a solid 9 out of 10. Next, let's talk about MIHAWK. MIHAWK is the tank of the Juggernaut squad. He is 18 speed, being tied with Beta Figure for the slowest base walk speed. However, he is by far the most HP out of all the other Jugs, with a base HP of 2.5k and it adds 625 HP per player. His mobility in practice is the worst out of all the Juggernauts. His base speed, along with his M1s being the only Jugs who locks him in place, really makes him struggle in this category. His damage output is really good though, especially with Heavy Swing and his M1s. The only thing that makes up for this terrible mobility is his leap, which is, in my opinion, the best out of all the Juggernauts. His abilities are alright. Heavy Swing is strong but dodgeable, and Shockwave is only usable in combos or really niche situations. Finally, I'd give him a difficulty rating about 3. He's easy to start out with, but hard to master. Now, don't let this large HP pool fool you. It's going to go down just as fast as all the other Juggernauts. However, his M1s also hit like a truck. The first two do 30.5, and the last one does 70.5, with his leap doing 75 and Shockwave doing 65, providing that everything hits. Now that we know all the damage values, let's go into some combos. And with MIHAWK, you're going to have to know these because MIHAWK is just too slow if you use just his base M1s. First, some one-shot combos that you can do involve Heavy Swing or Shockwave. For this one, just do an M1, re-equip the weapon, and then use Heavy Swing or Shockwave. Both of these will instantly one-shot a 100 HP player, as long as you hit all of Shockwave. Another more difficult combo you can do is with Leap. Do 1 M1, re-equip the weapon, jump, and then leap mid-air. It's tough to get the timing down, but it's a really quick way to decimate anybody near you. Also, in case you didn't know, Heavy Swing's hitbox is not actually in a circle around you. It's just in a really wide area in front of you where you use it. With Shockwave, outside of the combo I just showed, there's not much use for it. It leaves you really vulnerable to melee attacks, is relatively easy to dodge, and most of the time doesn't hit the enemy for the full 65 damage. So only use Shockwave if you have like a large group in a line on maps like Rocket Arena. Besides that, and in combos, this ability is practically useless. Now, MIHAWK can dispatch everyone with melees, guns, snipers, and whatever else. But when it comes to people with speed and dash abilities, that is why I hate MIHAWK on long maps like Critical Strike, Crossroads, and Townie. Now, you have 2 real movement abilities, and one of them is more of a tech. The tech is the same as moving with illusions, just do 1 M1 and then cancel it to do a dash. Now, thankfully, you're equipped with the best leap in the game, so usually you can just dunk on everyone who tries to outrun you. The only other weakness MIHAWK has besides his mobility is how painfully easy it is to parry him. Like, I haven't even bullet deep woken, and I've parried MIHAWKs with Hero Blade for over 2 minutes. As a MIHAWK, if you meet someone who is good at parrying, an effective method, and the only one, is to fake them out with an M1 cancel, and then follow up with a Heavy Swing like this. The maps MIHAWK is pretty bad on are maps with large amounts of open space, like Critical Strike and Townie. However, he's very strong on maps that don't have huge surface areas, like Beta Islands, Woodworks, and Containers. Overall, MIHAWK has a lot of strengths and can wipe lobbies given the right circumstances, but he also has a lot of exploitable weaknesses that can be annoying if you're playing as him. I rate this guy 6.5 out of 10. Next up is
Saxton HALE!
HALE is your standard effective brawler, with a huge HP pool and insane damage. HALE is equipped with a solid 20 walk speed, the same as Red Mist, however he can gain up to 25 walk speed as he loses more HP. He also has the same health and skilled health as Red Mist. Now, his description says that he sacrifices mobility for heavy hitting blows. This is just wrong. He can literally gain up to the highest walk speed out of any Jug, has a charge ability that can go extremely far, and also has a leap ability. Still not as good as Red Mist though. His damage output is the second best in the game, right behind MIHAWK. Why? Well, he has a one-shot punch every 15 seconds, a leap that does 75 damage, and his basic M1s can pretty much stun lock. I don't really know how this is balanced, but whatever. His leap is alright, and it really is just used for damage. I mean, literally look at how far it goes. You aren't using that to catch anybody. but his slam ability does do a whopping 75 damage. His abilities are the worst out of all the jugs, but he literally does not need them. Anyway, HALE is also by far the easiest Juggernaut to play. He literally has 3 keys: charge, punch, and slam. If you couldn't tell already, I do not like fighting this Juggernaut. HALE is basically playing JGN on easy mode. If you have no idea what you're doing and it's your first ever time playing Jug, if you want an easy win with not much effort, pick this class. Let's dissect his 2 abilities. As I said earlier, his leap doesn't change his base speed at all, unlike Beta Figure and MIHAWK. So the only thing he has here is Slam, which can be used as a combo opener or finisher. His leap also helps him traverse vertical terrain on maps like Woodworks, Crossroads, and Vertical Strike. Now for his only real ability, Charge. There's 2 ways you can use Charge, tapping it or holding it. As you hold down Charge more, it goes further, and at max, it goes around double the distance at the tap charge goes. When you hold it for around 4 seconds, that's when it goes the furthest it can, but it does 55 damage no matter how much you charge it. This ability is good for extending or opening combos, or for reaching any runners. HALE really doesn't have a weakness. I mean, sure, he doesn't have any ranged weapons, but with his base speed and charge, he can really just launch himself into whatever he needs to kill. And I've had SSG against HALE many times, and I can say that he is harder to hit than you think. His insane walk speed, lack of stun during his M1s, along with the ability to tap charge makes him extremely annoying to hit. The maps where he excels is pretty similar to the ones that MIHAWK does well on. However, due to the simplicity of his kit, he can really be played on any map, even on Critical Strike. I rate this guy 8.5 Saxons out of 10 HALEs. Please nerf him, JPX. Next up is Beta Figure. Beta Figure is the jack of all trades Juggernaut. His best perk is that he doesn't have any weaknesses to exploit. He is tied with MIHAWK for the slowest Juggernaut at a measly 18 walk speed. He has 2000 base HP with 500 extra for each player, making him the second tankiest Juggernaut behind MIHAWK. Honestly, this is more health than he really needs. Beta Figure sits in dead middle for mobility and damage output, which is expected for an all-rounded class. Onto his leap. His leap is amazing. Although it does less base damage than MIHAWK's, you move faster and it's used faster, along with not launching you up as high, giving the enemy less time to react. However, if you combo his leap with cubic buff, it does a whopping 90 damage. Beta Figure's abilities are really where he shines. He has everything you'd need and more, with infinite possibilities for combos. This is debatable, but in my opinion he is the second hardest Juggernaut to play. He requires you to actually think about your moves, along with using very quick inputs, something that a lot of the Juggernauts don't need to use. Let's start with his abilities. First is Cubic Essence. His M1 with the Cubic Essence is a poison knife that does 18.5 damage, but adds on an extra 9.5 poison damage, leading to a total of 28 damage per hit. This should only be used as an extra chip damage during a combo, because Retro Essence is just a better version of this. Although it has a smaller hitbox, it does 35 damage and ragdolls. Onto their abilities. Cubic Leap, as I said, is about the same caliber as MIHAWK's Leap, just quicker and does less damage. It works as a great tool to dive bomb any enemies. Next is Cubic Buff. The way you use this is extremely important, because 2x damage no matter what weapons you have is insane. First, when using Cubic Buff, pretty much all your weapons have insane potential. Your Stomp and Sprint do 70 damage, your Gun and Knife do 35, and your Zoner does 30 per tick. Cubic Buff lasts 15 seconds and does a 30-second cooldown. This cooldown is actually quite short, so make sure you abuse Cubic Buff as much as possible, especially early game. Basically, just always keep an eye on that cooldown, but don't use it unless you are near a lot of enemies or high value ones. On to Retro Essence. As I said earlier, the M1 is extremely good because it ragdolls and does 35 damage, which opens up room for so many different combos. You should always start your combos with Retro's M1, and then you can use Cubic's M1 for some extra damage. Retro Sprint is pretty nice too, as you can use it as a combo opener, or as a dash to get to an enemy. Retro Stomp is another combo starter or extender. It's pretty much Stomp, but doesn't do that stupid zigzag thing that makes it miss half the time. And just like Stomp, you can curve it. And finally, Ranger Essence. Each shot does 18.5 damage, so to kill someone it'll take 6 shots. Keep in mind that to get more bullets, you get 1 each second when that weapon is unequipped. Obviously, the gun's damage is not viable at all to kill an entire lobby with, so you mainly use this as a finisher if your other abilities didn't kill the target. A general rule I use is if the enemy is ragdolled, you have time to get about 2 to 3 shots in before they get up again. And finally, Zoner. Zoner is literally the definition of area denial. Try to use it as a way to manipulate where the challengers go. If someone is trying to run away from you, you can corner them or block off a path so they're forced to face you instead of running away. If you're getting overwhelmed by a lot of melee damage, you can also use it to give yourself some distance by standing in it. And the final use for it is to finish people off during combos. Speaking of combos, let me show a few. To start, here's one that's simple and very easy to perform in game. You open with Retro Sprint, then do a Retro M1, then a Cubic M1, and then kill them with a couple Ranger shots. You can also do this with Stomp. Open with Stomp, do a Retro M1, Cubic M1, and kill them with Ranger Essence. The next one takes faster inputs, but is an extremely effective way to use Zoner and Leap. Simply open with a Leap, land on the enemy, and as soon as you get your toolbar back, equip Ranger Essence, activate Zoner, and then shoot them as much as you can. As a jack-of-all-trades character, Beatty can really be played on any map. In summary, he's a tough-to-master, pretty tanky Juggernaut who is adaptable to any situation he's put in. I rate 8.5 out of Porta Boys out of 10 jeans. He's a 10 out of 10 though if you can play him right. You guys cooked with this one. And finally, Filibuster, the nuclear powerhouse who has the hand-to-hand combat skills of a 3-year-old child. He has 22 speed, making him the fastest Juggernaut on foot. He also has 1.5k base HP, with 305 extra HP for each player, making him the weakest Juggernaut in the game. Although his base speed is good, his only real movement is a simple dash that doesn't even go that far. This puts him second to last in the mobility category, only behind MIHAWK. Its damage output is also the worst out of any Juggernaut. I'm putting this here despite him having Obstructa, because that's literally all he has for damage. Everything else is painfully weak compared to the other Juggernauts, not to mention Obstructa itself isn't that hard to dodge once you face enough Phillies. Next is his Leap, which like Red Mist, he does not have one. His abilities are pretty good. Although lacking in damage, they do provide some cool utility, and I couldn't put this guy below top 3 with an ability like Obstructa. And with his overall weak moveset, along with his low HP and utility heavy abilities, makes him the hardest Juggernaut to play. Now, let's learn how to play him. Okay, first off, I don't have 40 games on this guy like the other Filibuster mains do, so don't attack me too much in the comments. But here's what I have learned with my time playing Philly. First, your overall playstyle has to be sort of a hit and run type of play. I know some of you don't really understand how you would do that with Philly, considering he has the second worst mobility in the game. Well, that high base speed, along with the dash, does actually help you. As you wait for Obstructa to charge, try to run away from the main crowd, and instead pick off stragglers and singular threats with different combos. Once you have Obstructa, and the crowd is densely packed together, pick your spot carefully, and
legalize nuclear bombs.
Once you've activated Obstructa, then rinse and repeat until you have it again. Basically, play Philly Runner, but don't play like an idiot. Instead of just running around and spamming Obstructa, play like an assassin, taking out individual targets while saving your nuke for the majority of players. Philly is a bit different compared to the other Jugs. Although he strives on close range maps because Obstructa covers so much area, he also strives on maps that have a lot of cover, like Townie, because it allows him to hide against high DPS ranged weapons. I rate Philly 6 battles out of 10 cats. He'd be better if they didn't make his punch do 25 damage. I mean, that's literally the same as air. And that's how to win with every Juggernaut. Sorry this video took so long, but judging by its length, you can obviously see why. Thank you to all these people for footage, and thank you to this guy for the borders you saw for each Juggernaut. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing, but at least thank you for watching. The kit game mode is probably next, after a tech guide, so stay tuned for that. And with that said, have a good day, and hopefully I'll see you soon.